we had just finished eating. A sheriff came up in a boat. He said to Bruce, he said, "We need your help." I'm Eugene Snyder, born in 1938, born in Plymouth, and parents moved us to Argos. And I become a Boy Scout at the age of 12 and an Explorer Scout at the age of 13.
All right, I'm George Stoltz. Same way I'd lived in Argos until I was about 27. And I moved out off one of the lakes out here, but I lived in this area my whole life. I started out in the Cub Scouts and went to the Boy Scouts and then became an Explorer Scout.
I listened to the Walter Cronkite radio play, the Boy's Life magazine.
Yeah.
And they start off by saying,
We take you back to April 2nd, 1955. Boy's Life in Argos, Indiana.
really, this is really interesting to hear Walter Cronkite talk about.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't you take me back to 1955? What was it like in Argos?
Well, in 1955, I was a junior in high school, and Argos was always a together town. I mean,
Everybody knew everybody, number one. And everybody was willing to chip in and help all of the kids and stuff, or anybody.
everybody worked together in about everything they did, and everybody knew that if Ethel Berger needed some help, down the street, well, somebody was there to help her. It's just the way it was. It was a together town. Not a lot of people, wasn't what you call a lot of traffic, even in 1955, and we had stores were all open downtown. Every store was open. We had 3 grocery stores. We had like 5 or 6 filling stations. Schoonover's clothing store, which was the main thing of the clothes as far as that goes.
And all the business people in town were nice to you. And the business guys, when we won a county tournament, which was a big deal back then, you'd go get your haircut, it'd be free. You go in to get a hamburger, it'd be free. It's just how they helped.
The tradition during that period of time was in front of the Standard Station downtown, they had a bench. But we'd sit there probably till 10, maybe sometimes 11 o'clock at night, and just shoot the breeze, just talk about things. And the police officer, John Hessler, I remember at the time, sat over there with us. The police car sat right there, and we'd all just sit and talk. And then when it was time to go home, usually John Hessler would say to us, "Boys, it's time to go home."
Well, when I started, it was the Boy Scouts, and we had a big Boy Scout group, but that's all we had. It ended right there with the Boy Scouts. We didn't have the Explorer Scouts then.
Well, I was a Boy Scout. We had men in town, House and Otto Grossman, Otto Gates, Bruce Vanderweel, Morris Ely, Hank Kepler. They would more or less advise you, get involved in something, get involved in sports, get involved in scouts and things like that. And I remember Morris Ely's the one that more or less convinced me to join the Boy Scouts. I was 11 years old, and I joined the Boy Scouts, and I really enjoyed it. Bruce started the Explorer Scouts, and so right out of Boy Scouts, more or less, I went into the Explorer Scouts. You could talk to kids that were in it, older kids, and they loved it, and all the things that they did and so forth. So right away I was convinced that's what I want to do. And so I joined up as soon as I was old enough, 13.
So we did a lot of, for Argus, backpacking. We can't walk out on Road 10 out a couple miles, then somehow they had permission from this guy named Thompson, who's a farmer. And we go down to the railroad crossing and then walk that down back and crawl across the fence. And there was a big half wooded area back in there, and he let us use it. And we used it so much that they even put a well rig in there and put a well in for us so we could pump it, so we'd have water. And we used that for several years. And I don't know exactly whatever happened there after that, but it was a place we'd go out there almost every weekend, hike out there at camp.
About that day, what was that?
Well, it was very surprising for a little town of Argos, you know. And Robert Hood came to town because he had, through somebody, I really don't know how, but heard about all the things that we do, you know. And he came to town and interviewed a lot of the people and the boys or the Explorer Scouts and so forth. And it was just an exciting time, and we were able to tell him about all the things that we did, you know.
I was at basketball practice, and they came in there and started looking at us and talking to us. Because a lot of the kids that, when you're in a small school, all the kids are involved in sports. You don't have to be that good, but so they did come in there and talk to a bunch of us, and we're snapping pictures about everything, and you kind of didn't know what was going on half the time because they didn't really talk that much to you as much as they just went around and took pictures.
No. But yeah, it was something that was kind of unbelievable for Argos, you know, that somebody like that from Boy's Life would come to Argos.
So they came to town. They did interviews, took pictures, followed you guys around.
Yeah.
What was the feeling in the community after this?
Yeah, everybody was interested in it, and the Explorers become kind of a central part of things, and people would ask you, you know, what's going on, what are you doing, and so on, and why is he here to talk with you, and things like this, and you would tell them, you know, that all the things we do here, evidently the word got out somewhere because we, along with helping the older people at that time, as far as raking their leaves, mowing their yards, and shoveling their snow, we served Easter breakfast at the churches, you know, at the church, and we washed cars to make money as far group wise. This is all money, all went to the Explorers, and we after the corn pickers went through the cornfields, we went out in the fields and picked up the corn that was left and sold it and made money. Just different things like that. If Bruce or Morse or somebody come up with some type of work thing to do for the Explorers, we were all for it. I mean, we just jumped right in. Now, not every Explorer did everything, but there was always enough to take care of their job. And if you weren't able to help at this because of other things, you help the next project. Yeah.
So that was a way for you guys to raise money for the trip, right?
For their trips, yeah. We made different types of trips, and we went to state parks like Turkey Run. Bruce Nem took us down there. We went on canoe trips down Tippecanoe River, and of course, the big thing was going to Thousand Islands Lake up in northeastern Wisconsin. Yeah, I can still remember parents, and especially my mother. She wasn't sure about this, you know. You're 15, 16 years old, and you're going up to Wisconsin on a lake or a river that we don't know anything about, because they knew about Tippecanoe River, you know, and they knew when it was high and when it was low and when it was safe and things like that. So parents, and mine weren't the only ones, parents were just wondering, but between Bruce and Hank Kepler, they assured them, you know, we're going to be safe. We're going to be okay. We're going to take care of them.
Well, here again, that was all came from Bruce, and how he got it set up with Boy's Life, I'll never know. He didn't talk about that. I guess he just contacted him and explained to him what we were going to do.
Yeah.
So how did you guys prepare for the trip?
As far as the canoeing part or just.
Yeah.
Well, we taking little trips down the Tippecanoe River helped, for one thing. Bruce and different adults explained canoeing to us and how to paddle and who should be paddling here when the one in front should, what they need to be doing, and how to turn your paddle to move your boat and things like that. And then as far as packing part, the food and everything else, of course, we packed a lot of our own food,
And then the funny part was when we were packing our packs for the food. The first thing was a joke. They said, you packed this bread. Well, they had loaves of bread over on the table, and they said, put them in those packs. Well, you put 6 loaves of bread in a pack, and they said, no, you got to eat them all in there. Well, what you do with bread is you take it, you squeeze it shut like an accordion, smash it, all the air out of it completely. And you think it would ruin it, but it doesn't. You open it up, it comes back. So we could only take enough bread for about 5 days, and then from that point we had to bake our own biscuits and stuff, but because bread would get moldy and that. But you had to take a lot of, that was new to us, dehydrated food. And you had to learn how to use that. And of course you had to plan your meals ahead of time because you have to let some of it soak for a long time, like potatoes and things like that.
And as far as clothes, if I remember right, and I think this is one of the things that we still laugh about today, is we didn't take very many clothes. I can remember, and I won't mention any names, and you can cut this out if you need to, but one boy didn't change underwear the whole 2 weeks. So, but as far as t-shirts and sweatshirts and blue jeans, you wore about the same clothes. Yeah.
So, so you got up. So you guys take a bus, right, up to the...
We took a bus and a truck, and half us, probably most of them rode in the bus, and I was one of the lucky or unlucky ones that rode in the back of a truck. It was like an army truck, and they had benches on both sides, and Hank Kepler drove the truck, and we just packed everything in there and climbed in the truck, and the back was open, and we were on our way. Yeah.
All the way up to...
All the way up. Yeah.
How was that ride?
Yeah. That was a rough ride. And I can remember we were all happy when we stopped, either to get gas, it didn't make any difference, or stop to eat, or just to rest. But we were happy about that because it was a rough ride to back that truck. Yeah.
Well, the day they loaded all the canoes up, and it was like a caravan, and they took us out to this, and you had a picture of it there when we were here. It was just a stream that probably fed from another lake, I don't know. And they dumped the canoes off there, and we put them in the thing, put our gear in there, and took off down this stream, which was not very wide, really. It wasn't much wider than from here. What do you mean that wide? About half the wide as this hall, where we're sitting right here. And we paddled out. Pretty soon we came into this big lake. And that's the first lake we camped on. And my group camped on a huge island. And I think some of theirs had islands. I think they really tried to put us on islands because of the bears up there. I mean, we didn't know what to do about bears. None of us had anything to protect ourselves, so.
Extra canoe paddle, maybe.
Oh, yeah. But we stayed there a couple of days, and then we'd go on to another one. And we all kind of left at the same time. We all stuck together then. There'd be like 30 canoes heading out through there in a line. And then we finally got to a place where we had to portage, which was not fun. And you had to pack all your gear and put it on and strap it on you and try to carry these canoes and walk a couple miles carrying all this stuff. Like I said, the canoes that we used were old canvas canoes. They didn't have metal canoes back then. And there's no seats in them. You had to kneel, and there was a board which tied the sides together in your canoe so it wouldn't be floppy. And you could lean against that, but you had to kneel that whole trip and paddle your canoe.
Were your knees hurting at the end there?
Well, most of us were smart enough to take a little cushion along to kneel on. And the other thing I thought was funny, they made us take an extra paddle, which I thought was silly. But it wasn't silly because I broke one of them. And, if you're all that way with one paddle. Yeah.
So it was really rough in it then.
Very, very much so, yeah.
So, you talked about it with George, but you did have some bad thing.
Yeah, we were camped out, and I can still see it today as plain as anything. We were on a lake which was kind of in between the river. We come in from the river and camped out in this lake, and then we were headed down the river at the other end of the lake. So there were a few cottages, not very well, none on our side, but on the other side there were some cottages. We had just finished eating. A sheriff came up in a boat. He said to Bruce, he said, "We need your help. We have a young man that drowned over here, and we cannot find him."
There was no way to get help in up there. I mean, who are they going to get? Like I said, up there, you're out in the middle of nowhere. And somehow they knew we were there, and they came over and asked if we'd help. Well, Bruce right away, sure. And it was a growing up thing, I guess. I prayed I didn't find the guy. Thank God I didn't. Pooch said it was his boat that found him, but we just had canoes, and they had this big long, it was a big hook thing, then it had double hooks hanging on it, and you'd just throw that with a big long rope, and you'd paddle these canoes around the lake back and forth, trying to hook him.
But I can remember the motorboat, to go back a little bit, I can remember the motorboat being out there, hearing it and watching the guy way across the lake skiing. And we found out that he had never skied before, and they were there because he was getting married the following week to this family's daughter. And his future brother-in-law was pulling him on the skis, and he wore a life jacket all morning. Well, they stopped and went in to rest a while. He hadn't fallen at all, and so when he came back out, he didn't need the life jacket. And so they took off, and he fell, and he couldn't swim. And the brother-in-law, I guess, instead of bringing the boat back around, he jumped out of the boat right away, but he couldn't handle him. So he lost him, and by the time he got back to the boat, of course, he couldn't get enough help to save him. But we went over there, and we did what the police officer asked us to do. There was probably, I'm guessing 7 canoes or more. I can't remember. But we were full of the lake. I mean, it was full of the canoes dragging. And I happened to be on the boat, the canoe that hooked him, one of the 2. And I was in the back paddling, and the kid that was he has passed away by now. He was in the middle holding the chain, and when they hooked the body, it just floated to the top, just like that police officer said it would. And he was supposed to grab a hold of him, but he just couldn't. He panicked. And that's when Hank Kepler was there, and he's the one that pulled him in. But we had to take him into shore. And I'll never forget, all the time we was canoeing, his future wife was up there crying and screaming on land. And then we just went back to our campsite, and that's about what it mattered. Yeah, it was a sad situation.
It's got to be a memory that sticks with you.
Yeah, we really had never dreamed of anything like this, But as we all settled down and everything cleared up, the next day we headed out. And not that we forgot about it, but we still enjoyed our trip. Yeah.
I can't imagine. That's when you're that age, seeing
right,
them
exactly.
that close, it's going to be rough. Wow.
But I can remember it and see things just as plain today as I could then. That's just something you never forget. Yeah.
That sticks with you. Well, let's see here. Oh yeah. Any hijinks that you got up to on the trip there? Did you guys, pull any pranks on each other?
You ask that, and I didn't really know if Pooch was talking about something silly, but in our group, really no.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, everything from eating somebody else's food to hiding their clothes or their swimsuit or maybe their canoe paddle, things like that, or telling them what certain things we're going to do, but we really weren't going to do it, things like that. Yeah, we all had fun. And then that after all those jokes and things, we'd all sit around the campfire and sing songs and tell jokes and stories and things like that. Yeah.
So tell me. So, so when the trip was over to the Boundary Waters, how did you feel about that? Like what?
Well, of course, we talked about it for years, and everybody in town knew about it, and they knew every story and everything about the trip, as far as that goes, because everybody told everybody about it. But it was one of those things, like I say, you still, and George, I'm sure, is the same way, and you could talk to Walt Gordon, any of those kids was on the trip. Many of them have passed away, but they tell you the same thing. It's something you never forgot, and you told the story on and on and on, as far as that goes. And yes, I probably, along with my parents, like Bruce was a second dad, so to speak, and you grew up the right way because of him. A lot of kids did. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Bruce. What was he like interacting with him?
Well, Bruce, to go back, of course, it's a real long story, but to go back to Bruce Vanderweel, he was born and raised in Argos, and he was a military man. And in fact, he became one of the top officers in the military. And he stayed in the military even after he got off of active duty, in the war. But his interest was in kids. And he ran a newsstand. And in fact, I worked for him. I was a paper boy for him. And I also was a shoe shine boy for him. He had a shoe shine, the old days, set right out there on the street, and people would come by and you'd shine their shoes, for 10 cents and maybe a nickel tip. But Bruce really cared about kids. He had two of his own, or I should say three of his own, I'm sorry. At that time he had two. He had a young boy and an older daughter. I mean, young as far as they were 8 and 10 and stuff like this. And then later on he had another young girl. But anyway, took care of his family. His dad helped run the newsstand. I mean, he was just a community family man for everybody.
Well, Bruce just tried to make leaders out of you, and he would almost force you into it, whether they wanted to or not. And it was good. It brought you out of being shy and backwards, and it taught you how to get up in front of groups. Because when we had our meetings, we'd have a lot of kids there, and you'd have to stand up and do whatever you were appointed to do, and talk in front of kids. And it helped me in life because I never dreamed in my life that I would ever have to get up in front of a lot of people and talk. And as it turned out, with my job, I did. I ended up with talking to groups of 300 or 400 people at a time. And so I was glad I had that training. And it all started with the Scouts.
Paid off, right?
Yeah, it did. And like I said before, he tried to teach a responsibility, like the flag deal we had there. We had to put the flag up over the library, and there was one right in the center of town there. And every day before sunrise, and take them down right before sunset. He would assign 2 kids each week to do this. And so here you are at 6 o'clock in the morning, going down in the basement of the newsstand there and getting the flag and going out and raising it before you go to school. And as soon as you got out of school and that, you're going by there, taking it down, folding it, and putting it downstairs for the next guys.
And you knew, in fact, I didn't have a bicycle, and he bought me a bicycle when he gave me a job at his newsstand delivering papers. I mean, I paid him back little by little. He took it out of a check. But when he found out I didn't have a bicycle and I wanted a job, because I walked a route, for a while, he bought me a new bicycle. I mean, just things like that. If you'd have asked him, can I borrow $100? He'd have probably loaned it to you, you know. But he was an Argos man, and just kept the town intact, you know, as far as that goes. Town, yeah.
Well, that sums it up perfectly.
All righty.
Right there. So-
Well, you do what you need to do as far as, because I know I go on and on and on, but it was all worth it. Yeah, it was a good life. As George pointed out before he went out, we really lived in the good times of life, really, you know. Yeah, we went through a few conflicts, you know. World War II, of course, was when it was over, when I was about 7 years old. But we had, you know, different problems and different wars and conflicts, or so to speak. But nothing like it is today, you know. So we were well blessed, and well blessed with the people we have, you know. And I think people, you know, like I say, a lot of my friends have passed away, but as I think of Jim Heron and Bob Grossman and Dunlap Boy and some of them, we related a lot of things to the kids coming up and our own kids, you know. So
Yeah.
thanks to Bruce Vanderwill and Hank Kepler and Gates and guys like that, Morse Ely.